neighbors and friends, and to our guests from throughout North Carolina and beyond. Our special greeting and welcome go to the ADA Legacy Tour, an educational and mobile exhibit that celebrates the 25th anniversary of the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act. My name is Joan Johnson, and I'm the Executive Director of Beyond Academics at UNCG. We were honored to be asked to co-sponsor this event and to provide a forum to continue education about access, equity, diversity, and inclusion. A fairly recent example of these basic tenets of civil rights for people with disabilities is the establishment of Beyond Academics at UNCG. We're marking our 8th year of educating adult learners with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Through the Certificate Program of Study, Integrative Community Studies, students develop knowledge and skills in self-determination, employment, independent living, and engaged citizenship. As with all programs of study on this campus, we know that the opportunity for higher education transforms lives. This could not be a truer statement for the students who access this certificate program. We celebrate the successes of ADA over 25 years, and it can be seen on this campus through the many progressive educational opportunities for all students with disabilities. We thank you for joining us for this informative and lively slate of activities. We're glad you're here. Now I'm honored to introduce our Acting Chancellor and Provost, Dana Dunn. Acting Chancellor Dunn joined UNCG in 2014 as Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor. More recently, she assumed the responsibility of Acting Chancellor upon appointment of UNC President Thomas W. Ross. Chancellor Dunn comes to UNCG with faculty service and academic leadership roles at the University of Texas at Arlington, where she served for more than 27 years. She led academic affairs for UT at Arlington for 8 years, first as Vice President and later as Provost. Chancellor Dunn holds a BA in Sociology and an MA in Political Economy from the University of Texas at Dallas. She earned her doctorate in sociology from the University of North Texas. Please join me in welcoming UNCG's Acting Chancellor and Provost to the podium, Dr. Dana Dunn.
Good morning. On July 26, 2015, our country celebrates 25 years of a landmark law focused on equal opportunity for living, learning, and earning. Happy 25th anniversary to the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Road to Freedom Legacy Tour has been initiated in order to provide a way for the entire country to reflect on the impact of this profound legislation. The University of North Carolina at Greensboro and Beyond Academics are honored to be one of the stops on the Road to Freedom and Legacy Tour in North Carolina throughout the months of May and June. This highly interactive and educational tour will conclude its year-long national journey in July 2015, and by then we'll have educated and enlightened scores of people about disability culture. Initiatives related to social justice often spur discussion, learning, and debate. We are grateful that UNCG can be a part of the educational effort that seeks to transform attitudes about embracing differences as a means to ensuring a more just community of opportunity for all. ADA has been a significant tool in assuring victories for community access to transportation, for removing physical barriers, for participating in higher education, for training and employment, and housing designed to support independence and self-reliance. ADA promotes self-advocates' rightful position in the community, the state, and in national leadership roles. The voice and will of individuals with disabilities provides the traction and effective energy for sustained change. Challenges to continue the momentum on disability issues will always present themselves, but our dedication to education, to meaningful discussion, and shared solution-focused problem solving will keep us moving forward. As a public university, UNCG is committed to equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's not enough to talk, study, and write about what constitutes an inclusive community. We must question our progress. We must never rest on our accomplishments. We must be authentic to our core values. We must model an inclusive community every day and in every way, whether it's ensuring a quality post-secondary education for individuals with intellectual disabilities, whether it's facilitating the necessary accommodations for a student with a disability who's degree seeking, or whether it's supporting a student through a mental health crisis, or working to be a military-friendly campus, or striving for inclusive excellence as the most racially and ethnically diverse campus in the entire UNC system, or whether it's the creation of the kind of educational institution where students, regardless of their background, their race, their religious beliefs, their sexual orientation, where they can learn and discover and engage together. UNCG is committed to the very principles that are foundational to the Americans with Disabilities Act. It was these very principles that spurred UNCG to engage with the community about another civil rights frontier that was emerging back in 2007. We embarked on a partnership that involved community activists, service providers, state agencies, but most importantly, adults with intellectual disabilities and their families, friends, and supporters. Landmark transition studies and the stories of these adult learners revealed a serious lack of community capacity for continued education and training that could positively impact the self-sufficiency through employment, community living, and opportunities to be fully engaged citizens. UNCG, with its funding partners, the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities and the North Carolina Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services, launched our state's first and only 4-year educational certificate program focused on the opportunities that were previously unavailable to these students following high school. In 2007, we ventured forth with 8 students, along with a handful of other university programs in the nation. In 2008, Congress reauthorized the Higher Education Opportunity Act with a new and very important provision that encouraged universities, colleges, and community colleges to offer such programs. Federal seed funding was allocated in 2010 to support the development of programs, particularly in areas of the country where few other options existed. Now there are more than 230 programs across the nation and a national coordinating center. On July 1st, 2014, Beyond Academics at UNCG received U.S. Department of Education designation as a comprehensive transition program, one of 30 such designated programs in the nation. This designation makes us very proud. It is important as it means that federal financial aid is now available for eligible students in the UNCG program of study. At the end of this week, a very special time in the life of a university, 11 students that comprise the 5th graduating class of the Integrative Community Studies ICS Beyond Academics program will participate in the general commencement ceremony at the university, with most going on to employment, continuing training, and independent living. They will participate in the same ceremony rite of passage as all other UNCG graduates. I look forward to being on stage and celebrating the accomplishments of all our graduates. What started as a small initiative has now expanded to educate and support a total of 34 graduates. In the upcoming academic year, we will grow yet again to serve 25 incoming first-year students, bringing the total of students enrolled at UTA to 64. We are proud of the program's accomplishments, but we're more focused on the fact that students with intellectual disabilities from North Carolina and other states are now able to pursue beyond academics and other programs of this type as an option for continued learning. Thank you for your participation today, and I know you will be inspired by our presenters. Our community welcomes you to UNCG and the ADA 25th anniversary celebration. Thank you.
I feel especially privileged to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Michael Mayer. I could take over half of Mike's time with us today enumerating the many examples of his undeniable impact on community systems development for people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. Just take a look at the bio on our agenda, and you will know that his work has affected thousands of people. He has trained personnel who support people with disabilities throughout the world. He has consulted in many states and other countries embarking on organizational change and affecting the lives of people with disabilities. He is a prolific author and a program developer first and foremost, giving us practical tools for everyday use in supporting people with disabilities, to scholarly works that inspire us to take the next steps into study, evaluation, and development. Mike, in the early days of conceptualizing and developing beyond academics, was a frequent consultant to our effort. He challenged us, he questioned our initial design, and he pushed us to drill deep about how this initiative would sustain over time. Never one to shy away from the difficult considerations, and we are the better for it now. Some would say Mike is a change agent. I would say after 20 plus years of seeing this incredible colleague in action, he is definitely that, but I think he's so much more. His commitment and passion for equity, access, diversity, and inclusion fuel the drive. He's one of those catalysts for a just community where people are just people. Turning away from the self-fulfilling prophecy that labeling can bring. That's what Mike Mayer has been about for as long as I can remember, and the many others who know him. I'm proud to present to you Dr. Michael Mayer.
Thank you. It is truly an honor to be here, and I consider Joan not only a great colleague, but a dear, dear friend. And I don't think I've ever been more honored than when I was asked if I would be here today. Chancellor Dunn, thank you so much for such profound comments, and really appreciate what you continue to bring to this university. And Dr. Terry Shelton, one of the most incredible people I have ever met in my life. I don't think she actually knows what the word can't means. She just decides that it can be done and then goes forward. As the Vice Chancellor of the Office of Research and Engagement, she has made the impossible possible for many people. And we truly I truly admire you and your accomplishments. The Office of Accessibility, Resources and Services, Bruce Pomeroy, as their leader, also deserves recognition for there were a lot of things that were going on before Beyond Academics began. And we need to acknowledge that beyond academics is one of those things that happens and is an important thing, but it doesn't necessarily do everything for everyone. And to Chris Egan, who's representing the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities today, thank you for the wisdom and courage to say, let's do something and let's make it real. Let's not pretend and do window dressing. Let's make a real difference. And to the North Carolina Council on DD, you deserve acknowledgement for that work. North Carolina Council ADA Network, you also deserve recognition for the work that you've done to make today possible and to make May 6th so important to 11 more people who will be coming into our community as graduates of an incredible certificate program. But the beyond academic staff and students are some of the most important people in this equation. And they deserve their acknowledgement too, because every single day is a new challenge, both as instructors and as students. And we want to acknowledge that as we look at what it is that's truly being accomplished as you change the world one person at a time. So, distinguished guests and friends and colleagues, I just want to stop for just a couple seconds today and say that in 2015, in addition to being the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, it is also the 65th anniversary of the first publicly funded sheltered workshop in the United States. It's the 45th anniversary of the first publicly funded group home. It's the 40th anniversary of 94-142, also known as IDEA, which was the public education for all children, so that kids who had disabilities wouldn't have to go to the church basement for school anymore. And it's also the 5th year of the President's Declaration of the Year of Community Living. As Chancellor Dunn said, the ADA is a civil rights bill. It was civil rights for people with disabilities, including people who had intellectual and developmental disabilities. Most importantly, it was the official recognition of citizenship for people with disabilities. And that, again, includes those who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, because for many years prior to that time, people with disabilities were only people who had vision impairment or were blind, deaf, and used wheelchairs. But finally, we acknowledged that disabilities were disabilities. And we all had some, and we all needed to figure out how we were going to make it work. The ADA included the requirement that we as a society needed to make reasonable accommodations to enable all those people with disabilities the opportunity to fully participate as contributing members of our society. It was no longer just about doing what was nice for people with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, or any other disability, but rather what was right for all people who are citizens, and to recognize that all of those people with disabilities are in fact citizens in every way. Our founding fathers, in the language of their time, stated the fundamental American promise. And many of us know this by heart, but I want to say it anyway. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These truths require no defense. We agree when we say they are self-evident. We agree when we say we are Americans. We agree that our Creator decided that we are equal, and we are simply acknowledging that. We agree that it is equally self-evident that all citizens are entitled to life, but they're also entitled to the freedom to choose from among all available options that any other citizen could choose from, without discrimination, without duress. That is liberty. And that for all of us, we are entitled to pursue happiness. And that for some of us, that's going to mean going to higher education, so that we can learn the things that we need to know to be able to actively pursue our happiness. Our nation was founded on the principles of self-determination. Now, this is the opposite of being dominated and controlled by others. It is our will that we get to express when we are talking about self-determination. However, even the disability field has an unfortunate history of being the helpers that viewed many people with disabilities, especially those with intellectual and developmental disabilities, as being in need of somebody, a surrogate, anyone, to control their lives, to make decisions for them. They were, and unfortunately for some, still are seen as being perpetually dependent upon us helpers, but also upon society as a whole. The problems associated with this are many, but this kind of thinking has created, among the many concepts that have flown out of it, the worst was that society didn't just develop low expectations for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We often developed no expectations for them. This not only inhibits the quality of their life, but it denies society access to who they are as people and to their contributions, to their gifts, their talents, and their abilities. Because people who experience disability do in fact have gifts and talents and abilities. And too often we have focused on the things that someone couldn't do rather than the things that one could do. As I age and I look around me, and I have become all too aware of how relative the word disability is. We were talking in the hallway before we began about the things that you used to be able to do, the things you used to be able to remember, that now maybe don't come quite so easily. We all agreed among ourselves that it's because we're too busy. It has nothing to do with aging. But things that really were easy for me at one time have become more difficult. I may require some assistance to get some of these things done. But this need of assistance to accomplish something in no way diminishes my ability to contribute to the world to make it a better place. And nor does it for anybody who has an intellectual or developmental disability. We need to understand that the people who experience significant challenges often, in fact, do have an understanding of things that we need to understand, that their perspective is valuable. If we want to break the patterns of unnecessary dependency and the entitlement mindset that grows out of that, it seems that higher education would be a good place to do it. Higher education is a process of transformation. It's a relatively safe place to learn, to make mistakes, to grow from them, and hopefully to find another new set of mistakes to make subsequently, so we don't keep making the same ones over and over again. And to this end, I need to congratulate the UNCG faculty for their collaboration at willing to be learning how to educate a diverse set of adult learners. It's a real challenge. For many of them, it's not what they understood was going to be their responsibility when they started. And yet, they find themselves engaged in doing this. But that's because higher education gives all of us, including the people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, the opportunity to become different, to become able to exercise those rights and apply the gifts and talents for the benefit not only of themselves, but also for their community and their nation. Self-advocates, it's the name we often use for people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities, generally want to be a positive difference in their world. They seek their place and their purpose in this world the same as the rest of us do. They want to end the isolation, the dependency, and to become truly valued members of our society. Programs such as this allow that to happen. But if we as a society are going to realize the full benefits of the Americans with Disabilities Act, then we must also assure that people who have intellectual and developmental disabilities have access to higher education in ever-growing amounts, so that they will be able to walk that pathway to self-determination, leaving their gifts and talents behind as presents for those of us who have had the opportunity to meet them. If we want to end the unnecessary dependency, then we must also provide the highest, best, and real opportunities for those self-advocates to excel at what they can do best and what they were made to do. It reminds me of the duck and the beaver. When they were brought together and they were told that because they both liked water, they need to become more like each other. And the instructor said to the beaver, "Today, beaver, you learn how to fly." He took him to the highest point on the campus of UNCG. And he said, "Beaver, in a few moments, I'm going to release you to the sky, and you need to flap as hard as you can so that you can fly." You've seen the duck do it many times. And with that, he tosses the beaver into the air. The beaver does not fly. It resembles flying for a short period of time. However, when the beaver lands, as quiet and compliant as he might now be, it's no longer a beaver, it is now a pelt. It's time to end the era of turning people into pelts. It's not about being quiet and compliant. It's about learning. It's about challenging the status quo. It's about being willing to take your university to the next level, or to take the students that you teach to the next level, or being willing to take yourself to the next level. Because you don't want to have to be like the duck who saw what you just did to the beaver and doesn't really want to learn how to build a dam, but is going to try like crazy. It's the wrong motivation. The motivation needs to be, what can we do? When I was a kid, I was taught that "can" was at the end of America for a reason, because we were Americans. We could do it. America was the land of opportunity and possibility, and it was our responsibility as citizens to turn can'ts into cans. We were supposed to take every time somebody said It can't work. And prove them wrong by doing it. Higher education is a place that can and is changing a historical can't into a current can. It is in the business of eliminating can't. Ladies and gentlemen, it's one thing to celebrate the Americans with Disabilities Act in abstract, or to think about Justin Dart and remember his words that motivated, or any of the other people who were so dramatically involved. But we have right here a very good reason to celebrate. We are observing the destruction of can't. They can't go to college, and yet they are. They'll never be able to achieve, and yet they are. Will never be able to live independently, and yet they are. They'll never be able to hold a job, and yet they are. They'll never, and yet they are. So please celebrate with me the destruction of can't here at UNCG through efforts such as Beyond Academics, but also across the nation as we begin to realize the full promise of higher education and operationalizing the meaning of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you. God bless.
The North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities is an advocacy, planning, and development agency represented by self-advocates, family members, and organizational professionals with a primary focus on improving the quality of life for people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. In 2007, the Council released a request for proposals for the development of higher education options for adult learners with intellectual and developmental disabilities. UNCG was the proud recipient of that 3-year grant, with the grant being a significant factor in the initial development of the program of study and its continued progression. It is my pleasure to introduce Chris Egan today, the Executive Director of the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities. Chris is a former clinical assistant professor in School of Social Work at UNC Chapel Hill, where he coordinated the work of the Developmental Disabilities Training Institute, which, by the way, has trained scores of people, scores of professionals and self-advocates over 40 years. And the Disability Training Institute is within the Jordan Institute for Families of the School of Social Work. Chris's experience in the disability community brings leadership to the Council to promote self-determination and independence for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities across North Carolina. Join me in welcoming Chris Egan.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? So we need to talk a little bit with the organizers about the timing of these presentations, because going after Mike is always problematic because he is, so inspirational, but has so much experience. And I could sit there and I could listen to you all day, Mike. And as Joan mentioned in that introduction, Mike Mayer truly has and is a change agent, and not only in North Carolina, but across the nation and internationally known as well. And Joan, also thank you for that kind introduction. And we've had the opportunity to work together for a number of years too, and with different hats, and you as well are a change agent and have been significant in terms of the impact for people with intellectual and other developmental disabilities. So many of you are wondering, and Joan, thank you for referencing the council a bit. Well, what is or who is the North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities? And it's a fair question. Some of you do know that. Every state and territory does have a council. And in fact, 45 years ago, the DD councils were authorized through what's called the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act for a specific purpose. This was a time when most services were occurring in segregated and separated fashion. And folks were not included and not valued and not seen as contributing members of community. So we have that opportunity now, then and now, to engage in advocacy, capacity building, systemic change activities that really contribute to a coordinated effort toward family-centered, individual-centered, comprehensive system of community services and individualized supports. I know that's a lot of jargon, but it's about building community. It's about opportunity. It's about recognizing that disability is natural, and our communities are stronger when everyone is part of our community. Focusing on abilities, as Mike mentioned earlier. Our council is one of 56 in the United States. Again, every state and territory has a council. Our council is part of the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services, so we have a seat at the table when it comes to policy and the direction our service system will take, and that's very, very important. In fact, we have a governor-appointed 40-member board. 60% of the folks on my board of directors are folks with intellectual and other developmental disabilities or family members. That's hugely important in directing where we go and influencing the direction of services and supports, but also building community in North Carolina. We're federally funded and mandated to support integration, inclusion, self-determination, and productivity, and engagement and building of community. We focus in two primary areas. As I just mentioned, the first is to make sure individuals with intellectual and other developmental disabilities and family members have input in helping shape services and supports and policy in order to have access to needed services and supports. We also have the opportunity, and the bulk of our funding goes to innovative projects, such as Beyond Academics. Mike also mentioned the ADA network in North Carolina. We currently fund the ADA network. We were very fortunate that UNCG and Joan and others were interested in seeding Beyond Academics, a post-secondary opportunity, very unique, very important, and no longer so innovative, fortunately, but has been seeding this idea across the nation and in North Carolina and other areas. Different, but inclusive. Beyond Academics here at UNCG is a wonderful example of innovation in post-secondary education for students with disabilities. The North Carolina Council on Developmental Disabilities was an early partner and provided the initial funding, but what we hoped would happen has happened. And that is that our funding has ended. We support, we're part of this effort, but this effort has continued without us and is growing, and that's what we want to see happen. Sustainability and growth, inspiration, hard work. Let me thank UNCG, Mike, as you did as well. Dr. Shelton, Dr. Dunn, Joan, and the faculty of UNCG, but Beyond Academics, and the students of Beyond Academics, and the students here at UNCG for the hard work that it's taken to get to this point. And we have 11 graduates coming up, and there are numbers more to come for years to come. All of you that are here today, thank you for your desire to think about how far we've come in the last 25 years in terms of the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and what this has meant for people with disabilities, all types of disabilities, to challenge stereotypes, stop discrimination, make our communities accessible, and improve opportunities for people to be full and valued members of their community. And while we've accomplished much in the last 25 years, and we still have much to do to fully realize the expectations of the ADA. And as such, the hopes and expectations of people with disabilities and their families and friends. So I would like to strongly encourage you, challenge you, to be part of a process that helps us fully realize the intent of the ADA, and not for 25 more years. We need to get there a lot sooner than that. Thank you for your commitment, your hard work, and for inviting us to be part of this with you and partnering with us on hosting the tour here today.
My name is Lelania Harrington. I'm the Director of Academics, and it's absolutely an honor to be up on the stage today, and a pleasure, a great pleasure, that I get to introduce an upcoming graduate, soon to be graduate very soon, who is going to talk to you a little bit about what college has meant to him. Remington Brown, from the first day that he stepped on this campus, has been advocating, and I think is a wonderful person to be able to share, with us all about his experience. He will talk to you about the many things that he's done and accomplished, including most recently the op-ed that came out in the News and Record, talking about the importance of education, higher education for all. So I will step away so that Remington can get up here and tell you more about his experience. Thank you.
Hello guys, really good I can speak today in front of a big audience. So let me tell you guys about where I'm from. I grew up in Orange County, North Carolina. I come from a mixed race background. My family doesn't see color. Hobbies and interests, I've taken music classes, I've learned about sound engineering and disability rights, and I learned about how to market my music. Now I have music on iTunes, so anyone can access it. Advocacy, I was a Spartan guide for quite some time. I got to give tours to students around campus, and I really enjoyed that. Just being able to educate them on beyond academics and what the purpose of the program is, about how we're not just BA students, but we are a part of the university. So that was really something that I learned when I first got here. And I got to educate people about the program, like I just mentioned. And also I got to be mentioned in the News and Record this week about Asperger's syndrome compared to Albert Einstein's. And actually we do use the word Asperger's more than autism because we consider the autism label to be a social construct. So. And I was a Spartan guide, mentioned that to you guys. I chose to come to UNCG because I wanted to reconnect with old friends, and I wanted to study about how to take a stand for what I believe in. I was told I couldn't come to college for many years, and when I got accepted into UNCG, I was able to tell the school, like, hey, I got into college, you can't tell me I can't do this. So I came with friends from home. When I was at UNCG, a lot of my friends from back at home also went to UNCG. Because I have friends who go to many different schools, but a lot of them go to UNCG. And then I was able to make new friends, of course, through the ministries and all that. And one thing I like about college, I have to give college credit for, is that you have friends of all ages in college, and that's pretty awesome. I have a 31-year-old brother who's an alumni from UNC, and we have a lot in common, even though he's 31 and I'm 23. So. But yeah, the ageism is not really big in college, and that's one thing I have to give him credit, compared to high school. And some people didn't know or respect that I have the same rights. So it's kind of interesting. You have the same human rights if you learn discourse society, but not everyone's educated on it. So that's one thing to learn about. And you learned about the disability rights movement, and they should teach more about it in high school, which I do advocate for. They should teach more of all the civil rights instead of just cherry picking what to teach and what not to pick. Because I think some people just don't know things, unfortunately. And I learned how to do things I didn't learn before college, like what I just mentioned, and also paying rent and finances, which I still struggle with today, but at the same time, it's still a learning experience. Someone who really is kind of kicking them behind for doing math. But I do know more the business side of finance, more than just the number side. The number side, we don't get along. And how to do things I didn't learn, like, different ways to clean your apartment, and different ways to advocate, and what's over advocating, things like that. And I tried different things to find out who you are in college. Like when I first came to college, for example, when I was in high school, I wasn't really myself, but no one really is. I was more like a wannabe, like urban kid. I used to not wear the best dressing clothing. But when I came to college, I kind of converted from being more urban to being more hipster. I figured out I'm more of a hippie than an urban kid. So I don't believe in guns. I don't believe in the military. It's kind of interesting views that I have is more like peace, not war, and I kind of incorporate that with my advocacy. But yeah, we would like to invite you guys to join us outside for food and other ADA celebration and goodies. So thanks for coming out, guys.
I'll just echo what Rim has just invited us to do. Please take advantage of the various activities that are going to be outside just momentarily. Don't forget to visit the Legacy Tour Bus that got here yesterday. I promise you'll find that very interesting. And of course, it's a birthday celebration, so there may be some birthday cake out there for ADA. But please join us for the rest of the festivities. Thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate it. And we'll say our goodbyes and dismissed outside.